Okay, I will turn it over to Jess Riles. So Jess is the
Right.
ag agent in Collier County, and she has been with Extension, what, 7 years now, Jess? Something like
Yeah,
that?
about 6 years.
Six. Okay, so take it away, Jess.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen here. Just let me know if you can see it. Okay. How does that
Yes.
look? Awesome. Okay. So thank you for having me, Rod, and inviting me back. I'm excited to talk to your group today. So my name is Jessica Riles. I'm the Agriculture and Sustainable Food Systems down in Collier County, Florida. So not too far away from y'all. And I am here to talk about case studies of successful small farms. And I was just telling Rod during the break, when he asked me to present on this topic, I was like, good, this is the kick in the butt that I needed to start putting some information out there and writing all these really wonderful success stories down. So thank you, Rod, for, moving me along here and helping me do this kind of work. And so this is very preliminary. It's certainly not complete, but it's kind of a snapshot of what's happening with some of the folks that I work with down in Collier County mostly. Oops, there we go. Okay, so you already know about the University of Florida IFAS extension. We're in every county in the state of Florida. And we are here to help you make your life better. We work in agriculture, human and natural resources, youth development, and nutrition, and so many things depending on what your county is interested in and needs. So I am glad you have found your local extension office. And please know that we are here more, than just ag. There's a whole plethora of experts and faculty that are in your local office that you can take advantage of. So I work mostly with growers on resource and education. Some of that has to do with farm food safety. A lot of it has to do with enterprise planning and business planning. We have a great research center in Immokalee called the Southwest Florida Research and Education Center. This is where a lot of our large vegetable producers, which we have quite a few of in Collier County, really go to because they have these really high-level pest and disease issues that they need actual scientists and, real PhDs to look at and solve for them. So a lot of the folks that I get questions from are those that are doing small-scale farming, backyard gardening, entrepreneurs, people that are wanting to get into farming or expand their farm operation in some way. And that's very diverse. It's everything from fruit and vegetables to fisheries to urban farms and chickens and goats and all kinds of things. Most of the people that I work with are in the fruit and vegetable realm. I also work with a team of agents, including Rod, on regional food system development, looking at how we can be more resilient with disasters in terms of our food system. And I do a lot with agricultural awareness, so farm tours and bus tours, that's where we really do utilize our large growers and bring people sort of behind the scenes of agriculture in Collier County. So let me move my little box here. Okay, I have 6 case studies that I want to share with you today. These are just very much the structure. I'm going to give a lot of commentary on some of the details, but if you have questions at the end, feel free to ask or plop them in the chat if you don't want to forget them. But we're going to look at 6 businesses. We're going to look at their structure and their product. We're going to talk about what makes them successful. And some of this is in their words. And then some of this is from what I see as an extension agent, because I get to see lots of different farms. So I get to sort of see what is sort of the common thread and the common themes throughout. And I want you to pay attention to what you think the common themes are as we go through some of these examples. These are all amazing farmers. They're excellent mentors. They've been excellent mentors to me, and they are wonderful teachers. And so I would encourage you all to get to know the farmers in your community. Get to know the ones here in Collier County too, because they very much want to share their experience and their successes and their failures. A lot of them have learned from others, and so we want to keep that going. Also, many of them are involved in this local brand called Southwest Florida Fresh, and Rod is also involved in that. And basically, it's a regional brand to support local direct-to-market consumers. I'm sorry, producers with consumers. So that might be you. When you get your farm up and running, you might say, you know what, I'm going to go on that Southwest Florida Fresh website and register my farm. It's a free service. You get to create your farm profile. And it's just a way for when people call the extension office, we can say, okay, you're looking for local food, go to this website and you can see the people that are growing and producing food in your area. So all of these growers are part of that program and you can find them on this website. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. This is Care to Grow Mushrooms, and the gentleman you see there on the screen is Russell Hollander. He's a wonderful man. He's so nice and so friendly, and he came to our Southwest Florida Small Farmer Network meeting back in 2016 or 17. And I was just a baby agent. I just started. And I said, okay, we're going to have a meeting here. And Russell showed up and was just so involved and was talking about this farm that he wanted to start. And he was so passionate about growing mushrooms. And just to see where he is today is so awesome. So he's got a great story. So his farm is in Collier County, and he is on about 2 acres. They are residential acreage, and he grows his mushrooms. The actual mushrooms are grown in shipping containers that are climate controlled, and of course they're vertical, so he stacks them, high up. He also has a whole processing where he essentially creates the medium for those mushrooms. He pasteurizes it. He has a pasteurizing process in one of the trailers, and then he moves it on to the growing chamber. So he's got a whole system involved that he has just built from the ground up. He grows gourmet mushrooms. He does like powders and tinctures. He's just gotten into the past maybe 2 or 3 years because people are demanding it and they want some of these products and they see the nutritional benefit of something like mushrooms and want to include it in their diet more than just fresh. He is a private farm operation, and he does mostly direct to market and farmers markets and chefs. That's sort of his main way of making money. He was established in 2017, and as of now, he's got about 14 restaurants and country clubs that he works with. He goes to weekly farmers markets, and he gets about 100 people weekly buying from him in season at those markets. He does offer the product year-round, which is kind of the nice thing about growing mushrooms. So it's not like, vegetables where you have your peak season or even tropical fruit where it's just the summer. And he's recently expanded his reach with internet sales. And you're going to see throughout, internet sales are huge. You almost can't have a business nowadays without having internet sales. It's very important. On the farm, so it's himself, and he works all the time. And he's got 1 or 2 employees. I believe 1 that is consistently with him, and 2 maybe at times when he needs it. His financing is that he started it all himself. He's raised every dollar he has himself, and anything that he has made, he's put back into the farm. And he is set up as a private corporation for legal structure. So a lot of times when we talk about, Rod had mentioned the business plan. Part of doing your business plan is really understanding what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. Well, a great strength that Russell has beyond just his characteristic and his hardworking is that his dad's a lawyer, right? For I believe it's for real estate. So he's got someone that, can help him through the legalese and the really, that side of business. So that's a good thing to have in your corner. Think about the things that you have in your corner that you can use to your advantage. He's had sales growth. I don't ask the growers their numbers because nobody wants to share that information, but I say, give me a general sense percentage or whatever. For him, his sales have doubled every year since he started. And now he's growing about 400 pounds a week of mushrooms in season. So he's really looking to expand. So the things that make him successful. Okay, so he farms, and he farms full time, but he also owns a custom carpentry business. So he's a carpenter by trade, and he didn't give up that business. He still works as a owner and operator. So it's a great thing to fall back on. He hasn't completely given up his quote unquote day job. He offers shiitake, lion mane, and oyster mushrooms. These things are not maybe easily readily available in stores. And so people that are looking for something a little bit more unique get to talk to Russell and buy his product. Again, he's got a climate control vertical farm. So of course, this is really important in the growing of the product, but after hurricanes, I have a kind of little system in place where I reach out to the growers and say, okay, how did it go? We'll talk about damages later, but how are you? How's the farm? And I never have to worry when I ask Russell how it went, because I know that everything's probably fine. His farm's in 2 shipping containers, so he's very well controlled in that respect. He also works with other small scale mushroom growers to offer products. So if there's a lapse in, product, or, he can buy from another mushroom grower to sort of replenish some of his supply and basically keep his sales consistent, because that's a really important key, especially for small scale growers. His fruiting logs are made from 100% pasteurized oak sawdust, gypsum, soy hull, wheat bran, and rice bran. This produces a better flush. And then once he creates that block, and he, again, creates all the blocks through machinery and by hand, he pasteurizes that, and then he inoculates it and puts it into the growing chamber. Russell is very comfortable with being the face of the farm. And this is really, really important, because a lot of the farmers that we meet, they want to be in the field, and they may not want to interact with the public. And that's something really important that you have to be very honest with yourself about. I've worked with growers that are like, yeah, maybe I'll try the farmer's market. And they're like, I hate it. I hate answering the same question over and over again. It's hot, to stand out there in that asphalt all day long, it's just not for them. So he's really comfortable being that salesperson and being the face of the farm. If you're not, you have to think of who could be, because that is very important. He's also been really good about creating continuous sales with his consumers. He told me, he's just not willing to give up is part of it too. Like he doesn't work less than 60 hours a week. This is his life's work and his passion, and that's what he's going to do. No one's going to tell him he can't. So I appreciate, and I love that grit. I love that about farmers. He also had the opportunity to expand. And so he had a very unique opportunity with one of the large corporations in our area, in our county, that said, wow, you've got a really great business structure. How about we take it over, give you a percentage, and really blow this thing up, and we can start shipping sales all over the United States, and it was very enticing. And he, was in a lot of those talks and negotiations with these folks. And ultimately, he decided he wanted to stay smaller. He wanted to have control of his company, and he wanted to be the owner. And so he's still trucking along. He's still doing it. He's still having those sales increases. So, expansion is a really important part of being a business owner, but you have to do it in a way that you're comfortable with. So that's why I think Russell is a great example. Okay, the next farm is Francis Farms, and this is actually a farm up in Punta Gorda. She is on a 2.5 acre ranchette. So that's like residential ag. If anyone is familiar with that area in Punta Gorda, it's typical of what we have here in Collier County as well. Her main products are microgreens, eggs, fresh produce, dairy goats. She's a private farm operation. She does have family involvement. So her husband's involved in the farm. Her kids are a little bit young, but she homeschools them. So they're very much involved with the hands-on aspects of the farm. She does direct to market, farmers markets, online sales, started in 2017. She has had a small but consistent customer base. And we didn't really get into the numbers, particularly of those that are visiting the farmers market, but usually on a Saturday on a farmers market, she did give me numbers, which I was grateful for. She said she made about $200 on a Saturday in the slow season, $700 in high season. And she just recently got a new account for $1,500 weekly through her relationships and her sales building. She's been able to work with a new hotel coming into downtown Punta Gorda and provide all of the microgreens for 15 different restaurants. So she's been able to really bump herself up here. She's also private, self-owned, farmed. She has also what she calls her mom volunteers. So because she's a stay-at-home mom, she's got this tribe of other moms that are stay-at-home moms and homeschool. And so she gets those ladies to come out and help her here and there, which is a really cool thing. So what makes her successful? Again, she's got that indoor setup like Russell had, so she can provide a product all year round. Consistently, steadily available. She said her approach to sales is very casual. She's not a hard seller. She's not trying to be Cheney Brothers. She's offering something completely different. She's also offering online delivery and sales. Her husband has a full-time job in IT profession. So to me, that equals consistent, steady paycheck and health insurance, which is huge. You're not going to get health insurance being a farmer, unfortunately. Again, she's venturing into the hotel restaurants with 13 different kind of conglomerate of restaurants in this new hotel. She also has really educated herself. So she networked with IFAS. She came to our small farms meetings. And she's taken advantage of educational opportunities. Microgreens, she said, wasn't her dream. She really wanted to do the dairy goats and the chickens, and she does some of the chickens and the eggs, but microgreens was something that she kind of just sat back after a while and said, what's really selling at the market? What are people really liking? What's, not fairly difficult for me to do? What's something that I can do and really increase my profit on and increase those margins on? So microgreens ended up being the thing for her. So her whole thing was, this was a little side hustle. She has a degree in anthropology from FGCU. She was not, just interested in sort of hobby farming and started really small, and it turned into a serious business. The next one is Naples Fruit Farm. So this is owned and operated by Marley Hagerstrom, and his, okay, so you see that little pin that says Clark's Lawn Service right under there. I should have put like a big red circle, but right under there you can see his tropical fruit grove. You can see he's in a pretty urban setting. We have challenges just like you do up in Sarasota County with our diminishing ag land. So he's on a residential lot. But he's got about 2.5 acres, or I'm sorry, he's got 5 acres, excuse me. And so he's able to create a really beautiful tropical fruit grove, mostly of mangoes. So he's in this sort of mixed use development area. He also started back in 2017. And you can see this is about when I started my job, and these are when I would start getting these phone calls of these folks and saying, I want to start a farm. What where do I start? And so it's been really cool to follow them throughout this journey. He also has a private farm. He does mostly wholesale to fruit stands. So when Hurricane Ian wiped out Pine Island, there's our fruit grower up there, Fruitscapes, who basically, didn't have any trees available due to the impacts of the storm and was having a hard time finding fruit. And so he had built relationships with Marley over the years, and it just, worked out really well that we weren't impacted that badly down here in Collier County. And he was able to sell most of his fruit this past season over to Fruitscapes. And he also will sell by appointment. He ships nationwide, so he's also kind of varied. He has private capital, so this is his own business, and he does take advantage of cost share programs when he's eligible. I don't have any sales growth or customer information for him yet, but I'm hoping to get that information soon. He works on the farm himself, and then he hires people on an as needed basis. So the things that make him really successful is that he has a lot of variety in the fruits that he's growing. His genetic diversity on that 5 acres is amazing. He's really leaned into the new varieties that ZIL has been growing on the East Coast. So these are all brand new varieties that, people are really clamoring to get their hands on. He grows certain varieties that different cultures want. So Indian cultures, Asian cultures, he knows what those folks want and grows those kinds of fruits. And he's just really very knowledgeable about tropical fruit. He learned from a lot of experts in the area and is really great about sharing information as well. He also has not quit his day job yet. So he works with a construction company, and I think he recently started his own construction company. So again, really important for the consistency, especially for something like mangoes, where you have this intense summer crop and then nothing, right? Or mostly nothing for the rest of the year. He's also really successful because he has implemented a really impressive and intensive pruning program. So the new age way of thinking about mango production is to really cram those trees in there, keep them small, keep them under, 15 feet or less. They're going to produce a lot of fruit. They're also going to be really resilient when we have hurricanes and flooding and things that come through, which we obviously have a lot of in Florida. So he's been able to bounce back from hurricanes and freezes very well. Part of that is the resiliency of that crop. I mean, mango trees are amazing, but a lot of it has to do with the pruning practices that he's implemented. Okay, Calusa Farms. I'm really excited to tell you about this one because I have the most information on Calusa Farms. So this is a farm in Collier County. They were on 2 acres, also in an urban estates residential area. So they had some room. They were allowed to do agricultural production, but they really basically couldn't have anyone come to the farm to do sales. Their main product was hydroponic microgreens, lettuce, and they also had these really cool growing towers that they would grow products from, but that they would also sell to people. So if you wanted like a little hydroponic vertical grow tower, they would sell that to folks and maintain them. And people really enjoyed those, especially those in like HOAs or folks that just wanted a little something on their lanai. They're also a private farm operation. At the end of the farm life, they started a manager profit share and a bonus program. And if you look all the way down at the bottom here, they did close in 2022. But this is still one of the best success stories I know of. Their business model is wholesale. So they mostly sold to country clubs, assisted living facilities, direct to market. They had great relationships with chefs. Jonathan Way, who was the owner and farmer, and his wife, Isabel Soto, they were involved with a lot of the folks in the chef community and made a lot of connections there. They also had private capital investment. Jonathan just told me he started this farm on $300 and never went into debt for it. And he also participated in cost share programs as eligible. They're a husband and wife team. They had a farm manager, they had a full-time driver, and they had 2 to 4 farm employees, depending on what they were growing in the growing season. Started in 2011. They had about 70 accounts that they were working with. And he also said that his sales doubled every year, year after year, since they started in 2011. Now in 2022, they decided to close their farm, and they were talking about this, I believe, around 2000, right before the pandemic or shortly around that time. Jonathan was really looking at the numbers, and we'll talk a little bit more about how he decided to end the farm. Him and I call this the happy funeral. So the first 3 years of the farm, he did not quit his secondary job. He kept farming full time, and he kept his other job full time. After that time, his wife Isabel and him came together. She used to work at our extension office in our Master Gardener program, and so both of them are highly knowledgeable about horticulture. And they said, "Okay, we're going to go in full time and make this work." They were excellent record keepers. Jonathan has a business background, which served him very, very well. He was really dialed in. He, at the end of the farm, had such a high efficiency. He was having higher sales, growing less. His profit, he told me, really came from the lettuce production. I should say the profit from the lettuce production really paid for his salaries. And then the microgreens, that he grew and sold, that was for him profit. So that's kind of how he looked at the farm as a whole. So I thought that was a really interesting lens. He also did a lot of heavy footwork for sales. So, he told me throughout the years, he was driving up to, Sarasota and all the way down to Marco. And those last couple years of the business, his sphere became so small. He said, we really didn't go past North Naples, and we didn't really go past South Naples. We kind of cornered the market, and we were concentrated in our customer base, and we got to be really picky about who we wanted to work with. Again, he had integrated vertical growing based on his land use. He had, again, a full-time transportation driver, which is huge. Good workers was really important. Again, he had a profit share program. He had a bonus structure. And he took advantage. He was one of the folks that I have a mailing list, and I send out all kinds of grants and cost shares and things that I come across that people could take advantage of. He was one of the folks that I would follow up with, and he would say, "Oh yeah, thanks for sending that grant. I applied for it. I got $8,000. We're going to build a seed shed." He was just that good at
Hello
really.
there.
Mr. Ed,
How you doing?
I'm
Oh,
doing good. How are you, sir?
Ed, I think you need to mute your microphone. Technology. So yeah, he really took advantage of those cost shares and those grant opportunities, which is very time consuming, but you can make it work for you. He said that, at a certain point in time, it wasn't the growth, it was about controlling the growth. If he wanted to continue to grow, which you kind of have to do, it's very difficult to stay stagnant in business. If he wanted to grow, he would have to make more investments, which means he would need more employees. He would need more land. He would need more equipment. He would really need even a bigger customer base. So for him, the numbers were not making sense. He didn't want to put his house up for collateral to get a loan. He didn't want to, put himself that far out when he was so successful. And this was truly like a 3-year conversation of, what are we going to do this year? Okay, this year everything shook out okay, but we need to look at next year, because next year could be the year that we close. This is amazing foresight that a lot of small business owners, it's difficult to have, because you're so passionate about what you're doing and you want to make it succeed. But Jonathan was not willing to put his family at risk. He was not willing to put his finances at risk for something that he didn't see a future in, or that he didn't want to necessarily see that future in. The most amazing thing, again, was as he started to wind down the business and close the farm, he used his connections and experience to basically get a job as becoming a farm manager, and now a CEO of a large wholesale horticulture plant nursery in Naples, Florida. And he's doing amazing things. And it was, that 10 years of experience on the farm, growing these products and really making an efficient product, I think is probably what sealed the deal about, for him getting that job. And the fact that he's now CEO of the company is just amazing and showing his work ethic. So I love this example. I think a lot of people would look at it and say, oh, but the farm closed. But, you know, he was able to secure himself and his family and even some of his employees to do better than what they currently have. So this was a great stepping stone in his career. Okay, Ruby's honey. So again, most of the folks that I work with tend to be fruit and vegetable growers, just because of the land use and the sales and the marketing and associated with that. But there is a great family called the Rubies. And so they have a company called Ruby's Honey. They're located in Collier County. Of course, they grow. Well, they have apiaries and raise bees and sell honey. So they have variable acreage throughout Southwest Florida. They also send their bees to Michigan, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. They started in 2017. They're a private farm operation. The husband, his father was a beekeeper, and so he was raised in that lifestyle. And so it's a husband and wife team. They are doing direct to consumer. They've recently moved to the wholesale scene, which is very exciting. They've got about 16 locations that they sell their honey to wholesale, which includes small shops and pediatric centers and pediatrician offices, which is pretty neat. And they've also increased their sale percentage year over year due to local demand of local raw honey. So what makes them successful is that during the spring and fall and winter, they move their hives around depending on the bloom. And so they either have land or have worked with farmers in Collier, Hendry, Glades, Lee, and Highlands County. In the summer, they actually take their bees on a tractor trailer to Michigan. And basically what they started seeing is keeping their bees here on the property just was not conducive to the hives. So they were getting about 60% losses over the summer, which is horrible. And a lot of that was severe heat, rain, coastal flooding at their coastal locations, flooding in the swamping areas, just not real happy bees. And so once they moved the bees up to Michigan for the summer, they found they had about a 5% loss. So this really, you know, even though it's a lot of time and energy and money to send them up there, it actually makes up for it because they're able to keep a lot more of their bees alive. It's funny, the wife always tells me, like, it's the most nerve-wracking ride of the year, driving behind that tractor trailer. It's like, there's our whole life, you know, if something happens, this is going to be awful, but it's great. And it's worked out for them, you know, wonderfully the past year or two. This is also a family that does homeschooling. And so the kids are involved, everybody's involved with either the production or the processing of the honey in some way. Brisa is the wife, is the owner. She's had really wonderful success in building relationships over the years. And they're just willing to adapt and change as necessary. I mean, they are some of the most resilient people that I know. She was selling her honey at some of these local shops, and someone said, I don't think you can do that. And you can't do that under the cottage food law. You've got to do that, through a FDAX license. And so she said, okay, we didn't realize that. And so she started working at the Immokalee Accelerator, which is a commercial kitchen in Immokalee, Florida. And so she's able to process her honey, and that's a picture of her processing that honey up there in a commercial kitchen. And that has just blown open the doors for them in terms of their sales and where they're able to sell their honey. Okay, and so the final farmer that I'm going to talk about is in Yoni Organic Farm. So this is Nick and Natalie Beatty. They are in Collier County, Florida. So they're on 6 acres. And they have about 50 plus different market vegetables that they sell, that they grow and that they sell. They're a private farm operation. They're a sole proprietor farm. Nick sells mostly to wholesale, to country clubs, assisted living facilities. They have a hold on the farmers markets in this area because they've been farming, for 20 plus years. And so they were way ahead of the curve, especially with USD organic in this area. That is Farmer Nick. Sorry, my daughter is here. So they're financing the farm. All of their profits go. Oh, hold on 1 second. Okay, Daddy's coming in to get her. It's way past bedtime. Their farm profits go back into the farm. They also do cost shares as appropriate. So they take advantage of NRCS grants or things that come along. They're a husband and wife team. They have a farm manager. They participate in the WOOF program. So I believe that stands for like Worldwide Organic Opportunities in Farming. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. And so people sign up through the website, and they're a site that, people from all over the US and all over the world can come work on the farm, gain knowledge and experience from Farmer Nick, and they can live on the site. And, I think they get a stipend. He's also got some volunteers that come and help him weed. Of course, that's not very consistent, but it helps. And he's looking into the H2A program, which is unheard of with small farms. But he is going through that very lengthy process because finding labor on small farms or any farms is really, really difficult. So he started back in 2003. Again, excellent farmer market presence. He's got about 20 plus year hold on those farmer markets. So, he's at all the good ones, right? He's at, and he sells a great product. He's got a long-standing relationship with chefs and restaurants. He's consistent in his products. Again, he knows what these folks are wanting, and he's growing for them. He's a very much an early adopter of the local farm movement in Southwest Florida. He's got a degree from UF in horticulture. And so like many of our farmers, they're either scientists or they have a bachelor's degree from UF or some sort of land grant university. So they've got a lot of connections and education as well. So he has years of experience. His integrated pest management procedures are amazing. He knows what works really good on his land, and he supports the USDA organic standard. So a lot of growers nowadays are moving away from that because really it's what the USDA organic label is a marketing label. And for most direct to consumer growers, you maybe don't need that because I can talk to you as the grower and say, what did you spray on this, lettuce, or what do you use for fertilizer? And so it is a bit of a costly program to be involved in, but he really believes in that program, and especially for soil health. He practices intensive soil health. He does cover crops with sun hemp and cowpea every year. And so he really is into that science of farming. He does online sales with Barn to Door, and him and his wife Natalie also have explored agritourism. So they have great farm tours. They do farm to table lunches. They do yoga. They have concerts, and so they have really expanded in that way and over the past couple of years. So that is my talk. Does anyone have any questions? I know that was a lot of information.
Yes, I have a couple.
Sure.
How are you this evening? That was a good presentation. Thank you so much. A lot of information, a lot of good information. So my first one is there a particular market that has become saturated and is there a particular market that was at one point doing good and with the new economic times has taken a downturn that people are steering away from?
That's a great question. I think when the pandemic hit, microgreens was sort of an iffy one because all of those nice fancy restaurants started closing down, but most of them have opened back up. And I keep seeing more microgreen growers pop back up. So at one time, if it was 2001, I would have told you, or 2021, I should say, I would have said, I don't know if you should go into microgreens, but that market has rebounded just fine. In terms of the overall market for local food, I can tell you that demand is definitely not met. And all of the growers, this is the number one question I ask them is, do you think there's an overflow or too much competition in the market? And they're across the board, their answer is no, I can't meet the demand. We need more small farmers because I can't meet the demand that's out there.
Okay, and then I noticed that a lot of in your presentation, quite a few of them started in 2017. Like, is there something particular that was going on in Collier County in 2017 that a lot of these small farms popped up?
Great question. So no, I think it was just because I had started working in this job around 2016, 2017. And that is, I think they were starting their journey. I was starting my journey as an extension agent, and they called to say, hey, what kind of resources you have? And so I kept tabs on them over the years, just saying, what are you up to? What you growing? How's business? Visiting the farm and just building relationships with them. So there's tons of farms that have a before date that have started. Warden Farm up in your neck of the woods is one that has been around for a long time. 2007 just happens to be when I started the job. So that's when I was interacting with these folks from the beginning.
Okay, cool. And you said there's really no surveys or anything of a particular market that has been saturated.
Not that I know of. I mean, Rod, what do you think? It kind of might depend on your, hyper local area, but I can't think of one offhand.
I would say it is hyper local, but there's always somebody that can meet the demand, whether it's Cheney Brothers or other large distributors or Warden or somebody. So most of the demand is being met now. So what you have to do is differentiate yourself. If they want more local, remember the USDA definition for local is 400 miles. It can come from Savannah, Georgia to Sarasota and still technically be local. Mm-hmm. So if they want it to be from Sarasota County, then you might have an advantage. Or if you can provide a niche product, say microgreens. When you say microgreens, that's a product category. There are lots of different products within microgreens that may be certain types. And I remember somebody talking to me about a purple radicchio or something. That's what people wanted. So sometimes it gets that specific within microgreens and say there's a demand for that one, but the Brussels sprouts, no, that's saturated. So it really comes down to doing a lot of primary market research and finding out down to that detail where the opportunity is.
Yeah, that's very true. And, a couple of the growers that I talked with, again, the microgreens and even Calusa Farms, Calusa Farms said, we were growing tomatoes. We were growing the most beautiful heirloom tomatoes. And I would go into these restaurants and I would talk to these chefs and they go, okay, cool, great for the education on heirloom tomatoes, but Cisco's selling them cheaper. So like Rod's saying, you really have to hone in on who is going to buy that product. And if you can get a buyer and grow for that buyer, that's the most ideal thing.
We just, when I say we, are two incubatee families that we have out at the Moat Incubator, just came into some information that a local chef in Sarasota who has 5 restaurants wants a particular type of tomato. I wouldn't necessarily call it heirloom, but it's a particular type that it's a little tough to grow in Florida, but he said he needs that. So our incubatees are clamoring to develop that as their purple cow, their way to differentiate themselves. And once he buys this variety of tomatoes, we hope, well, maybe he'll buy some Ace peppers and some Swiss chard and other things. But you don't have to necessarily find everything that's unique, but you need to find something that is different, that can get attention. The purple cow, we call it in marketing. So you want to find one purple cow and lead the rest of the herd with that purple cow.
Mhm.
And I massacred that metaphor. Sorry.
I know, but I know it's good to network and, go out there and like visit farmers markets and farms and networking with people. But is there like a blog or some kind of online network where you can keep up with the latest trends regarding small farming?
Well, there's lots of information out there. Not all of it is unbiased or evidence-based. I don't know that there's anything there are things at a macro level, but like we were just talking about, your market really is your county, your town. It's hyper local, and what's might be trending there is not what's in Georgia or in California or Minnesota.
Right.
So you really need to be doing that primary market research. And then, as Jess has mentioned, the networking, right? So you noticed I didn't share the name of that tomato variety with y'all because our incubatees came up with that, found that out, and I'm not going to betray their proprietary information. But many times small farmers will share that kind of information. So that networking is golden. It really is. Other questions for Jess? Jess, any idea? You talked about the journey of many of these people, many of these enterprises. Any idea? And I know everyone's skeptical or hesitant to share revenues and incomes, but any idea on how long that you would call their startup phase? Before they started making money, before one of them could quit work, before they were break even? Is it 2 years, 5 years?
Yeah,
it depends.
That's a great question. I would say in general, and again, anecdotally, somewhere 3 to 5 years. But as you can see, like a lot of them have not quit their other jobs because they have a spouse that's working, right? So it gives them the ability to kind of jump off a little bit earlier. They say, okay, I can do it in 3 years. I can quit my job in 3 years because husband's still working in IT, and we can make sure that we get health insurance and all that, pension and retirement funds and all that stuff that's really important. So it varies. I think it varies across the board. I think I think 3 years is a good benchmark to see if you're going to start making money. I think that's a pretty good learning curve. But that's just a thought. It depends on each person's situation.
And as we've talked about before, I recommend the 80-20 rule, where you're always got 20% of what you're growing, producing, that you're looking at different things. So you're trying to market some microgreens. You're trying, you have a few mango trees, but you're experimenting at a scale where if it doesn't work, it doesn't put you out of business. But that 80% should be what's going to pay the bills. But you never stop experimenting, because I think you mentioned, Jess, somebody, she wanted to do eggs and poultry and dairy goats.
Dairy goats, yeah.
But the microgreens started paying the bills and taking off. So you really do need to experiment, and you need to be able to adapt. Don't lock in that, hey, I got to do dairy goats because that's what I've been telling everybody, I'm going to do dairy goats. If they aren't cutting it, change course.
Yeah. And, the beauty of being a small farmer is you do have a little more flexibility and can pivot a little bit more easily.
One more question for Jess, and we'll let her go to put her daughter to bed.
On the bee situation, you had that beautiful picture of the truck loaded with bees. how many acres do they need to service, or how many acres do they need to have to really have those bees be productive?
So not as much as you'd think. So I think with the state of Florida regulation, don't quote me on it, it's somewhere between 1 and 3 hives per quarter acre on a residential lot is what you're allowed. When you're dealing with agricultural land, you can put a lot more bees on that. And I don't know the specifics on it. But if you think about the nature of that, the bees, they're basically flying up to 5 miles in a radius. So it's not even so important where you're, the lot you're putting them on. Of course, they need to be in a safe location, and they need to be in a secure location where animals aren't going to get to them or flooding. But really, they're doing a lot of their work out of where their hive is. So you can put a lot of apiaries on a small area.
Is it a service business where they're being paid by the farmer to collect the honey for him, or is it something where they're basically stealing the pollen from neighboring farms, for their own production? What, or is it both?
So they do a lot with cattle ranches. And I know, like, the one where the 3 of us are all friends, and she puts Breeza puts the hives on our friend's cattle ranch operation. She's got like 1,800 acres in exchange of honey, and she could possibly charge, right? The rancher could say, oh, you can give me, a certain amount of dollars, but they know that having the bees out there is good for the land. It's good for the biodiversity, and they get honey in exchange, which is really nice. So I believe they've kind of moved away from vegetable farms mostly, because there's a lot of spraying in vegetable farms. And even though the growers are really very cognizant and aware of the bees and make sure that they're spraying at the right times, you still run a risk. And so they've tried to keep to more open space lands.
Okay, yeah, we have great experience where a neighboring 5-acre parcel was vacant, and he let his friend, the beekeeper, keep his bees there. Not maybe a third of what you showed in that picture. The problem is that it was within the 5 miles of residential area. So people's swimming pools and everything got flooded with bees because they didn't have sufficient water. And we discovered the state of Florida has very lax laws on their requirements.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Weird summer until they finally sold the property and moved away.
Yeah. I mean, the bees are considered livestock in the state of Florida. And like you said, they're very supportive of having hives and domesticated bees. And even as on a residential lot, as long as you have the sort of distance between your neighbors and some requirements, like a certain amount of height of fencing or hedging, so that it pushes the bees up with their flight path, you're allowed to have bees even in your residential acreage or residential lot. So yeah, not to say that everyone should. I mean, you want to be a good neighbor, but
complicated. Yeah.
Coincidentally, I'm meeting with a beekeeper tomorrow morning who wants to put a couple hives by our incubator out at Moat.
Nice.
And I had a call from another beekeeper who also wants to put hives there. So
very good.
The beekeepers are coming out of the woodwork.
Nice.
You don't want 100 hives, next time.
No, these are just going to be 2 or 3 apiece.
Right, and they have to have their own water supply. That's very important.
Yes.
You don't want them using your water supply and being in every little pond and thing you have.
Yeah, having access to a lake or something is important.
Okay, thank you very much, Jess. It's been a delight. I know everybody was very interested in what you had to say. So you did a great job, and thank you for sharing that very specific, actionable information.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite, and thank you for doing this class.